Hey everybody, Jamie Oikel here from runningrestaurants.com. Glad to have you back for another episode. Today we're digging into one of the toughest challenges facing restaurants right now, and that's staying relevant and keeping guests coming back in a world where attention is more competitive than ever. So as you know, it's not enough to just serve great food. You've got to tell your story, build buzz, make sure your brand sticks in people's minds. And to help unpack all of that, I've got an incredible guest joining me. Samantha Flynn is the founder and chief strategy officer of Juniper Public Relations. She's spoken on major stages across the country. She's been featured in Forbes, PR Week, Authority Magazine, and others. And she recently led the award-winning campaign that turned Mignoli into one of Chicago's most talked about restaurant openings. So she's helped big franchises, chef-driven independents to get the kind of attention that builds restaurants' reputation and drives real traffic. And today she'll be breaking down exactly what restaurants need to be doing, even on tight budgets, to stay top of mind and earn repeat business. So going to be a fantastic conversation packed with insights you can use right away. So let's get into it. Samantha, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about your background, the work you're doing there, and we will dig in.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Samantha Flynn, and I'm owner of Juniper Public Relations, as you said. And so we are a strategic communications firm headquartered in Chicago with a satellite office in Philadelphia. And we help create news and generate buzz for our clients, whether they are restaurants, as you have mentioned, or in vitro diagnostics companies, well-known kitchen brands, food and beverage companies. And so we help them stay relevant, connect with their customers, and ultimately drive sales and traffic into their establishments.
Yeah, awesome. And we're going to talk a lot of, I'm pretty much on all those things today, but I want to start off with something that's a little interesting. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but let's say you walk into a restaurant today, and do you see any early signs of branding and storytelling mistakes, that people that are missing the boat? What are some things that jump out at you?
Well, I think it starts right as soon as you walk into the restaurant, right? I think sometimes a lot of restaurateurs, there's a lot of dead space from when the door to the host stand or the hostess stand. And so I think really leveraging that space right in the beginning on how are you telling your story, right? Whether that is framing any of the awards or the press release that you have, pictures of the chef and the cultural moments that are there. I think right at the beginning, it's just really important that the experience starts as soon as you walk in the door. And that's a lot of real estate and space where you can bring people in. I think we think a lot about outside of a restaurant and the interior side of it, but that's a really valuable space that makes people feel excited and warm and welcome.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think people use that well enough, for sure. What about this word relevance in general? How do you stay relevant? What does it mean to be relevant? How do you describe it and define it to your folks?
I feel that the best way to be relevant is to be participating in the community and part of the culinary conversations that are happening. So we can go out, and we do go out all day, every day on this is the new restaurant item. This is the new restaurant. Meet the chef, come do the demos, the seasonal specials. But I think being a part of the culinary conversations that are in your community are the ones that are the most important. So whether that's participating in your local neighborhood restaurant week, whether that's offering a deal on tax day right after people
Yeah.
are paying taxes and knowing that you're listed there. Just making sure that when there are moments you're meeting your customers outside of the restaurant to bring them into the restaurant by participating in the moments that matter to them.
What about things like, folks will always talk about the word branding, and you can give us your definition of that. But folks say, the logo, this, and the colors of that. But it's more than that. And I think you're obviously an expert in this space. So how do you talk about those topics?
I think it's just important to know that branding is a 360. So to your
Mm,
point, what a lot of people think about is what is the color? What is the logo? Where do I put the logo on the menu? Right. And
yeah.
really, you have to tell the story and bring the brand to life through all of your various interiors, through your menus. And so I would say for Mignoli specifically, what's very particular about them is they're a Taiwanese noodle shop. It's a very specific type of culinary of Taiwanese cuisine that's only found in a certain area where the chef is, but he makes sure that the menus also have the Taiwanese pronunciations, right? That
Mhm.
he's welcoming people all the way around. So I think looking and living the branding and having that authenticity come through, the right ingredients that are helping the branding and telling the story, that's all really important to create an overall restaurant brand. It's so much more than just a name.
Talk about let's stay there, and I not
Mhm.
we don't have to go whole case
Sure.
study there, but I saw some stuff on your site or from your press folks. 34 million media impressions, huge social media growth on a relatively small budget for those guys, and really helped that campaign explode. What really was the crux there?
I think it's always digging into telling the culinary story. So where a lot of restaurants tend to fall short in marketing is, as I said before, just focusing on their seasonal items, their hours, really trying to drive people in and just focusing on that block and tackle. And with our restaurant clients, we really believe that food has the power to connect. It connects people, it connects cultures. It, for lack of a better term, sets the table for real connection and human community. And so we always try to find that deeper story. And I think with Mignoli in particular, Chef Rich was raised in a military barrack in Taiwan. It was after the Chinese Taiwanese War. And these military barracks had come together. And what ended up happening is there was a very unique culinary expression that had happened with all of these people that were in these military barracks. And the one that he was raised in was Mignoli, was actually the name of the
Hmm.
barrack.
Hmm.
And so what ended up happening is now that they are going away with urbanization and redevelopment 50 years later. And so we were able to tell the story of this is him preserving his culinary culture, which becomes a lot more if people want to come and check out the food and really experience it versus this is the cold cucumber salad and what we do different.
Love it. You must have used a variety of tools, social media stuff. So let's kind of go there for a few minutes in terms of your thoughts on what can make the most impact. And it's going to be different across different brands, perhaps. But what have you found any kind of trends that are more successful and effective, whether it's TikTok here, Instagram there, Facebook, et cetera? What do you think?
So I think it's more about the cadence in which you are marketing rather than necessarily the channels. And I will
Mhm.
give some specifics on what channels work the best. But I think prior to you opening, it's important to go out with details of where the restaurant is going to be, the size of the square footage, and the concept at the beginning. This could be 3 months out, but you need to prime a culinary audience to be looking for you when you open. If you
Mhm.
are only doing that in the 2 weeks before you open the doors, you're already behind. So what I would say is that the culinary community on TikTok, on Instagram is very, very vibrant and engaging. And so you want to give them a reason to look forward to you and be familiar with you so that when you open the door, they're already there and that the lines are there.
A question for you.
Mhm.
With those brands, do you help folks create the content?
Yes, we can. I think that in general, it's good to have, we do media preview nights. We have influencers come in and get to experience. Everybody wants that type of authenticity and to see the noodle pull or to see the live fire cooking. And so I believe that the best content is always user generated content, working with influencers. But we do photo shoots with our clients. We have all of our glamour shots. Media often requires that anyway, so we can do a mix of different formats.
I want to stick with that influencer angle for a second. I'm curious about that. I've read articles and put stuff out about how to find them, how to locate them, how to invite them in. How do you guys go about it?
So it's very interesting. I think Chicago. So we have restaurant clients all across the country, but we're really kind of focused in Chicago over the
Mm.
past year or two because there's such a vibrant, as I said, culinary community. And so
Yeah.
we follow them on Instagram, right? And so
Hmm.
we
Hmm.
know who the players are. We
Yeah.
watch the hashtags, we follow them around, but
Mm.
it's all manual outreach. And I think that
Yeah.
that's the best way. Now, I do have a policy, and I will tell my clients, some people go back and forth on this. We do not pay the influencers
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
addition
Hmm.
to coming in. We will comp the food. And so what we end up doing is we start using some sort of exclusive strategy on you can come here before it's open, right? Um, or we're happy to comp different types of tasting menus or things like that, but really kind of create that FOMO. And then when we see people that engage with us with the restaurant on Instagram, we do a lot of the manual, but it's all manual work that we do. I will say we do focus on culinary, but there are also people that are saying, what is there to do in Chicago? Choose
Hmm.
Chicago restaurants, lifestyle. So I think it's great to be open to everybody because anybody can pop in and be your restaurant customer.
Yeah, and you probably know this better than I. Some of these folks have just gigantic audiences. They manage to get tons of followers.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes that's where the pay component comes in, and we
Mm.
understand that. We tend to tell them that we understand and we respect the size of their community. We want it to feel fair. But at this juncture, we're at an in kind partnership.
Yep. Yep.
One network that we have started working with that actually has been great, and it's kind of for these mid to micro
Sure.
influencers, is called Taste Agent.
Hmm.
And they're in Chicago, but they actually may be broader than that. But they're a platform where influencers sign up and
Huh.
we comp them a meal, and then they post and they share with Taste Agent, they share with the restaurant. And so you're kind of getting three audiences. And what's helpful about that is that the influencers that are posting with Taste Agent, the other Taste Agent influencers are seeing it, knowing that that restaurant participates. So that's been something that's helped us kind of keep always on as we're getting into it. They've been open for a couple years now. So,
Yeah, like if we jumped in a time machine, everything you just said 10 years ago wouldn't have made sense.
right. Absolutely.
But that's where we are now, and it's a big part of it. So, but let's go to some other marketing strategies, and specifically, let's go to a smaller budget mentality right now. So, a restaurant may only have $1,500, $2,000 a month to kind of budget towards marketing. Where would you kind of recommend they point those dollars?
So I think that the value is always in earned media and public relations. I think you can run social media ads or Yelp ads or anything. It's just that budget doesn't go that far on those platforms, and they're really highly saturated. So I would say working with an individual to pitch broadcast segments, to have local stories run in the markets, is where it's really beneficial, and really focusing to tell the story and what makes you different from a marketing perspective. So you have your press release on the hours and the menu and so on and so forth. But again, like making the connection with media. And I think that's where PR really helps.
I was going to ask you a similar question. You know, independents sometimes think that the PR is maybe only for bigger brands. When do they know it's the right time to engage?
I think it's the right time to engage always, I would say, like, it's an always on perspective, but I would say that I would start on your shoulder seasons. I would start
Mhm.
on your slower seasons and see if a well-placed broadcast segment or write-up in your local eater publication or
Mhm.
review from your restaurant critic that hits during your slower seasons affects sales. And I will say that we see that with our restaurant clients across the board. We had a client start a new brunch offering. It was challenging to get it off the ground. We were able to get that. He specifically called in and said, "Hey, we need some support, some love on brunch." We were able to get some press there, and now brunch is off and running on its own. So it's been interesting.
Nice. You know, on the flip side, is there anything that you've seen clients spend money on recently or in the recent past that just like, oh, you're like, oh my gosh, that was probably not a good idea. You might have wasted opportunity there. Anything jump at you?
I think it's a couple different things. I think the first one, again, I would say would be paying the food influencers, because there are
Mm.
so many that'll do it for the in kind. And if you
Mhm.
have a limited budget, you're really paying for one piece of content. I think that kind of can go a little bit farther. I would also say just working to kind of manage and play that Google review game, or paying for
Mm.
reviews or things like that. I think we are receiving, I think food culture has kind of moved over onto the social channels. And I think if you're seeing different negative ads, I think people kind of are on to the Google review game at this point. I think we have an educated customer, I would say.
Yeah, listen, I did have a note that I wanted to get to in that world where reputation management and crisis management and bad reviews, it's a very mental space for restaurant operators. No one likes to hear bad things about them, but especially not online. So, do you share tips with folks on how to manage a bad review, bad feedback or positive feedback as well?
Sure. And I would say, working with chefs are very particular. And I think,
Yeah,
because it's their heart and soul. And I
yeah,
know that you're aware of that. And so we can never control what is in a review or, a story or write up. So we are often soft places for the chef to land to kind of think through, well, how does this feedback hit? How can we make any changes? Is the feedback things that we can address right away? Is the wait time too long? Should we look at the hospitality? What can we do to kind of help turn that around? I would say from the Google side or the Yelp side,
hmm hmm
we educate our clients just like we would on any social media. It's important to respond. It's
yeah,
important to have a visible response in which you are trying to make it right. But I think you only do that once, right? Like some people are there to just burn it all down and want to get back and forth into a flame war. And so our recommendation is to always say, we're sorry that you had this experience. We'd love to learn more. We've private messaged you, or we'd like to move the conversation offline.
right.
So because that way people will at least see that the restaurant is responsive. And that's essentially in a situation like that, all you can do, I would say.
Correct. Correct. Agree. Yeah. Good tips there. Appreciate that. Anything that you've seen that's moved the needle in terms of social media growth, followers, whether it's specific type of content, anything that's engaging more than others?
Videos and signature dishes.
Mm,
So, what
mm,
I would encourage restaurateurs, whether they're franchise, independent, whatever it looks like, what is your one signature dish that you want
mhm.
everybody talking about? And that is what you either have the influencers focus on or you create the video. People want to see food move, right? Like, I think with
Mm.
publications and, traditional media, yes, we need a beautiful picture of a steak on a plate, right? But I
Yep.
wanna see it in reality. I wanna see the cheese pull. I wanna see how it slurps up. And so I would say, signature dishes that take off on TikTok. We see it a lot here in Chicago. A bar up the road has a chicken Caesar wrap that a TikTok person fell in love with and made a video on, and next thing you know, they're making them 20 at a time to send out on delivery. So I think
Right.
if you can be known for a signature dish, that does really well on social.
Question for you on the content creation. What have your clients found to be effective? Just a staff member picking up a phone and making some stuff, doing some light editing, and that's fine. Getting more professional, something in between. What do you think?
I think you need a mix of everything. And so I would say when you're first opening, it's worth the investment to have a food photographer. And I
Mm,
think that's a big difference. You need to
yeah.
find somebody that knows food photography and knows lighting. And I think there are a lot of photographers that say they can do it, but it's totally different. And I
Right.
know you know that, Jamie.
Sure.
So I think having some of those glamour shots for your print publications, your food and wine, any of the larger publications. But then I think people just, like I said, want to see things in reality. And so using your phone, some light editing, and then the user generated content from the influencers, I think works really, really hard as well.
Yeah. So let's go to I think you used the word cadence earlier in terms of online content. And do you have or recommend or have thoughts? Hey, you should do the signature dish on this day, and you should do a chef piece video on this day. Any kind of tips for a calendar?
Sure. So I would say in a pre-launch phase, when you're first going out and you're just sharing, this is going to be the address, this is the size, this is the concept.
Mhm.
That can go anywhere out 3 months before you're slated to open. I think the benefit of that is you never want to tie too closely to an open date because we all know
Mm,
things happen, right?
mhm.
Construction, permitting, your bar license doesn't come in. But I think giving people a general idea, it's set to open in spring, it's set to open in summer. I think that makes sense. So we tend to do that about 3 months out, again, to familiarize customers, but also familiarize media with who we are and circle back with them. So I would say about 2 weeks before you're opening the doors, that's when the full court press should come, on the sense of these are the opening hours, this is the date. these are the specific menus. Media loves and influencers love to see the menu in advance. So I think that there's always value in doing communication specifically about the menu, specifically about the signature dishes, pointing out to the media what the signature dishes are about 2 weeks in advance. And then we like to do media previews during the soft opening. And that would be my recommended cadence.
Okay. If you were to shift that kind of thinking to an existing restaurant, someone who's been up for years and years and talk about their kind of ongoing social strategy, do you have recommendations for, hey, post once a day, post 3 times a week? Any thoughts there and content wise as well?
I think it just matters on what the restaurant is. So I think something like a Potbelly sandwich shop or some QSR restaurants benefit from 2 to 3 times a day, right? You want to be hitting them in the morning when people are making their lunch decisions against the various day parts.
Yeah.
But I think when you're doing some fine dining restaurants, we have a really nice restaurant client out in Sun Valley, Idaho. That is a much more elite clientele, right? And so that's a little bit less, where we would say 2 to 3 times a week, sharing what the activities are, and then making sure that you're hitting the cadence of when your customers are going to come in.
Yeah. Good advice there. So some people do ask this question for everything out there, the return on investment, the impact of PR, the impact of marketing. Do you have metrics that you look at to utilize for campaigns that restaurants can use when they're doing their marketing and their social to say, hey, is it working?
So I would say that's PR's Achilles heel, right? Is what is an impression worth and what does
Mm,
success look like? So for me, I would say I look at the number of placements, because the impressions are going to be different in Chicago versus in Sun Valley or in Orlando, right? The
yeah.
different size of communities. And so we look at number of placements. So I look at the question and I start on the media is, where do we need to be? How many culinary outlets, or who's talking about food? And then we try to get into 75% of them. So I want to be in
Mm,
Eater, Chicago. I want to be on the Chicago Tribune or the Chicago Sun-Times. I don't think it needs to be both, even though there are different audiences, right? Who's the restaurant critic? Now we go out to both, but I think one of them's considered a win, right? Where is the broadcast placements that we have coming through? How many influencers? So I think focusing on the number of placements, and depending on the size of the market, 5 to 8 placements will saturate your market, or more than saturate your market. So it is a low lift.
Good. Yeah. It's one of those things I like to get your thoughts and feedback on. So I'm great. I want to ask you some personal questions in a second about your business and things like that. But one more kind of marketing question. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it at a restaurant owner and something that they could do to market themselves better, what do you think you'd sprinkle on them?
I think it's important, like I said, to be involved in the conversations, but also the larger culinary conversations that
Mm,
aren't necessarily tied to your restaurant. We have a lot of opportunities across our desk, where we have a writer from Yahoo that is looking for chef hacks on how to make the best brownies, or how to do
yeah.
an ultimate grilled cheese at home. And a lot of my clients don't make brownies or grilled cheese. They serve them, but they make them at home, right? And so what we found is, it takes us a while to get them to understand the value, but what ends up happening is, then you get syndicated into Food and Wine. Your
Hmm.
web link is there, and it might not be your immediate customer, but it's raising your profile for people that are visiting Chicago, people that
Yeah.
are visiting other areas. And so I think participation, and it's such a low lift. I'll text the chefs and say, you got one tip for me. And so once they can kind of shift that mindset that everything doesn't only have to be focused, it's kind of a give and take, right? We
Yeah.
have to put our knowledge out into the world to build a reputation. That's what I think is the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean that's part of the long game. It's not gonna pay off tomorrow if you do one of
Right.
those tips, but it does. Builds and builds, and all of a sudden it can add. So let's go to some questions we talked before we started. You're obviously sounds like you're a book person and a media person. So
Yeah.
let's go to a book recommendation. It can be in this space. It can be anything you like in the whole planet. You think folks should know about. What do you have for a recommendation?
I really like Grit by Angela Duckworth,
Yeah,
which,
that's
it's on your bookshelf. I was gonna say a lot of
it's here
entrepreneurs
somewhere.
are
It's so good.
Absolutely, and it really tries to quantify that intangible characteristic that you need to kind of plow through the world of whatever you're building or from a success metric. I will say that in this area, I haven't read it yet, but I just ordered Why I Cook by Tom Colicchio, and I'm
Mhm,
really
mhm.
excited to read that. I think that's gonna have I'm interested in him in general. So yep.
Okay, good, good. Because what about on the advice side? Do you have a favorite piece of advice that you received that you use in your business on an ongoing basis?
I think the biggest thing that I remember is just to not disqualify myself before
Mm,
anybody else does, and I think that we tend to do that. So any opportunity is available to everybody, and I think sometimes, we don't go after things because we just
mm.
think that somebody else is not qualified or we don't belong to be in the room. And I actually have to talk to our chefs about that sometimes. Like, why wouldn't you be the one that's doing this demo for Kentucky Derby mint juleps and how to make the
Yeah,
perfect, like, why wouldn't it be you? It's going to be
yeah,
someone here. Someone's
yeah.
going to take that spot. So I think not disqualifying yourself before someone else does is a big one.
That is a big one. I think a lot of us do that in lots of parts of our life. So that's a good one. Thank you. What about? Do you have a favorite quote or a saying that you go to?
Well, our tagline is smart work for nice people. And
Mm,
I always kind of return to that because
yeah.
that's what I wanna do from a business perspective,
Mm.
but also how I wanna be living my life. So I wanna be doing things I'm passionate about that really get us going and make a difference for nice people. So I would say that.
Very good one. All right, so this one you can go any way you want. Could be big or small. Any big or small mistake or lesson you've learned that you'd want to help people not make the same mistake.
I think the mistake that I have made or what I've realized in over the course of entrepreneurship is that your network is so much more supportive than you
Mm,
realize it is.
mm,
And so to be able to ask for help, be able to know and know what you don't know and
mm.
find the right resource. And if the right resource isn't in your immediate circle, there's someone that can probably point you in the right direction. So I think I
Yeah,
had a little bit of a slow start because I didn't know I could ask. I wasn't comfortable with asking, and so that would be my piece of advice.
yeah. The power of networking. And what's the worst they could say? They could say no.
Well, right, and that
Worst they
goes
could say
back
is
to
no.
the disqualifying, and you'd
Yeah,
be surprised. People know people from college roommates
yeah.
that now are, loan officers or something
I
like
know,
that,
I
and
know.
all
There's
these
also
connections.
all sorts of crazy connections that you never think about. What about trends that you're seeing, or where do you think you see the restaurant space in 2 to 3 years? Because it's been changing so much lately. Anything you see?
It is changing a lot, and actually, I'm in Lakeview in Chicago, and we have the little delivery robots that have faces that
Oh,
are all
really?
around,
Oh,
and and I know that they're making them look adorable because they want people to be okay with them,
yeah.
but what I would say is that I think that it's really important that I think they're gonna rebound as a third space, right? So there's a lot of discourse and dialogue on these robots that are delivering food and how that's affecting, work and people that are delivering. But, I would posture, particularly here in the winter, right? That those customers were always going to order out anyway. And so I think
Mhm.
what restaurants are going to start doing is really leaning back into being a third space and fostering that community and that partnership for people that are out already. So I'm starting to see that in addition to restaurants, now are they doing culinary classes on their off days or during the slow seasons?
Mm.
Can people do buyouts? Is there special programming or tasting menus, even for the locals to keep them returning and feeling good? So I think that enhanced kind of destination dining experiences is where we're moving to versus just kind of come in and get out.
Good. Okay. Good stuff there. All right. So we're gonna start towards wrapping. So parting thoughts. Send them to websites or socials for you guys. Any other thing we didn't touch on that you'd want to share? Give it a go.
I just think it's important, like I said on the restaurant, is to be willing to share your culinary perspective and POV. And we get lost in this, but what makes your burger the best burger? What is the connection to home? Everybody can connect culinarily to something. I travel quite a bit and I'm always so surprised at how this, ramen is similar to chicken noodle soup, is similar to, and in the sense of what it's feeling and the feeling it emotes. And people want to feel that connection. And so that's what I would say is that it's so much more than whatever you're serving on the plate. It's the emotion from beginning to end. And that's just what I like to tell my clients.
Yeah. Hit them with the website, socials for you guys.
Website is www.juniperpublicrelations.com. There's no E in between the P and the R, JUNIPR publicrelations.com. And we are also on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Juniper Public Relations.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right. We covered a lot in about 30 minutes. So we zoomed through a lot of key marketing stuff. So hopefully we gave some tips that folks will find helpful. Folks, Samantha Flynn of Juniper Public Relations. You can find them on the web at JUNIPRpublicrelations.com for more great restaurant marketing, service, people, and tech tips. Stay tuned to us here at runningrestaurants.com. In the meantime, do us a favor, like the episode, share it, rate it, review it, wherever you happen to be listening to it. That would be super helpful and super appreciated. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you.